Given that we're in a time when there is much debate in regards to who has a right to marry and who does not, I wanted to post this video explaining the history of the marriage license. First of all, a marriage license is a document issued either by a church or state authority authorizing a couple to marry. The procedure for obtaining a license varies between countries and has changed over time. Marriage licenses began to be issued in the Middle Ages to permit a marriage which would otherwise be illegal, for instance, if the necessary period of notice for the marriage had not been given. Today, they are legal requirements in some jurisdictions and may also serve as the record of the marriage itself if signed by the couple and witnessed. In other jurisdictions, a license is not required. In some jurisdictions, a pardon can be obtained for marrying without a license, and in some jurisdictions, common law marriages and marriage by cohabitation and representation are also recognized. These do not require a marriage license. There are also jurisdictions where marriage licenses do not exist at all, and a marriage certificate is given to the couple after the marriage ceremony has taken place. Article 16 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights declares that men and women of full age, without any limitation due to race, nationality, or religion, have the right to marry and to found a family. They are entitled to equal rights as to marriage, during marriage, and at its dissolution. Marriage shall be entered into only with the free and full consent of the intending spouses. For most of Western history, marriage was a private contract between two families. Until the 16th century, Christian churches accepted the validity of a marriage on the basis of a couple's declarations. If two people claimed that they had exchanged marital vows, even without witnesses, the Catholic Church accepted that they were validly married. State courts in the United States have routinely held that public cohabitation was sufficient evidence of a valid marriage. Marriage license application records from government authorities are widely available starting from the mid-19th century. Some are available dating from the 17th century in colonial America. But marriage licenses were not required until after the American Civil War. Marriage licenses from their inception have sought to establish certain prohibitions on the institution of marriage. These prohibitions have changed throughout history. In the 1920s, they were used by 38 states to prohibit whites from marrying blacks, mulattoes, Japanese, Chinese, Indians, Mongolians, Malays, or Filipinos without a state-approved license. At least 32 nations have established significant prohibitions on same-sex marriage. The marriage laws and license requirements of many states originated from the idea of eugenics. Eugenics is the applied science or the biosocial movement which advocates the use of practices aimed at improving the genetic composition of a population, usually referring to the manipulation of human populations. The origin of the concept of eugenics began with certain interpretations of Mendelian inheritance and the theories of August Weismann. Eugenics was widely popular in the early decades of the 20th century. The first International Congress of Eugenics in 1912 was supported by many prominent persons, including its presidents Leonard Darwin, the son of Charles Darwin, Honorary Vice President Winston Churchill, then First Lord of the Admiralty, and future Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, August Forel, famous Swiss pathologist, and Alexander Graham Bell, the inventor of the telephone, among others. Eugenics was a controversial concept even shortly after its creation. The first major challenge to conventional eugenics based upon genetic inheritance was made in 1915 by Thomas Hunt Morgan, who demonstrated the event of genetic mutation occurring outside of inheritance involving the discovery of the birth of a fruit fly with white eyes from a family and ancestry of the red-eyed Drosophila species of fruit fly. Morgan claimed that this demonstrated that major genetic changes occurred outside of inheritance and that the concept of eugenics based upon genetic inheritance was severely flawed. By the mid-20th century, eugenics had fallen into disfavor, having become associated with Nazi Germany. This country's approach to genetics and eugenics have focused on Eugen Fischer's concept of phylogenetics and the Nazi twin study methods of Fischer and Ottmar Freiherr von Vescher. Both the public and some elements of the scientific community have associated eugenics with Nazi abuses, such as enforced racial hygiene, human experimentation, and the extermination of undesired population groups. However, developments in genomic, and reproductive technologies at the end of the 20th century have raised many new questions and concerns about the meaning of eugenics and its ethical and moral status in the modern era, effectively creating a resurgence of interest in eugenics. So we find quite clearly that the use of the marriage license was initially formed for the purpose of keeping interracial marriage prohibited as a form of eugenics. And as we battle today in the debate happening in the United States over same-sex unions, marriages, we're faced with the question as to who has the right to obtain a marriage license, and must a marriage license be obtained from the state to form a recognizable marriage union. This debate will most likely continue on for some time, even as we see states legalizing such marriages. It's important to recognize the history of the marriage license as we fight to, on one side of this debate or the other, so that we do so with full knowledge of the history of this license. It must be noted that none of the founding fathers of this nation up through the middle 1800s ever obtained a marriage license. Up to that point in time, mere cohabitation, as explained earlier, was indeed the forming of a marriage. And in some cases, if a person were churched or associated or a member of a church, they would have a ceremony in the church, and the church would issue a marriage certificate. Thank you for listening. I hope you find this information informative and beneficial.